So, if it comes to here, we have been started that heredity and evolution, correct? So, in last class, I have told you what do you mean by heredity and as well as what do you mean by variations. So, now first of all, if it comes to know, what do you mean by heredity, guys? Anybody can say? So, just we can say it is like genetical transformations, means from the parents to the offsprings, if the characters or any kind of traits, we used to say characters or traits will transfer, then that is what we used to call as heredity. Is it yes, guys? Yes or no? So between the parents, whatever it is, it may be in animals or maybe in plants, between the parents to the new offsprings, like new generations. So if the characters of the parents is transforming, that is what we used to call as traits, then that is what we used to call as heredity. Is it yes or no? Please respond. So, in this heredity means transforming these characters. So, as we know, in last previous chapter we studied the two types of reproduction will be there. That is what how do organisms reproduce? One is by sexual method and another one is by asexual method. So, and I told you during the asexual reproductive method, the variations produced is very less. So the number of variations produced in this asexual method is negligible, and the daughter cells or else the new offsprings is almost similar to the parents. So they are like a replicating the exact like duplicates of parents. But if it comes to the sexual reproduction method, so here the number of variations produced with this sexual reproduction is very large, and even you can take they may be similar to the parents, but they are not a true copy of the parents. That is what we studied in the last class. Yes or no? So because in sexual reproduction, what is happening? Two parents are involving. So the two parents are coming from sexual reproduction. Two parents are involving. So both are coming from different kind of generations. So different kind of genes and different kind of families. So that is why in sexual reproduction, so a lot of variations used to come in. So they may be similar to the parents, but a lot of variations we used to observe in them. So that is why we can say the offsprings are never a true copy of the parents in this sexual reproduction. So, but they are resembling similar to the parents, but they are not in complete all the respects. So the difference in these characters among the individuals of a species, that is what we used to call as, what we used to call, guys? Variations we used to call as. So what is the examples of variations we have studied in the last class? Examples of variations. So if we'll take for example, so all we people are called as humans, but some people are very long, very tall, some people are very
attached the earlobe and detached the earlobe.
Some have medium height, some have short height. So some are very short, some are very fatty, some are very thin, some are having a like white skin, some are having a black skin. So different, some are having curled hair, some are having a silky hair, like this. So among ourselves, like a particular among the individuals of a species, they're having a characters, the difference in their characters, that is what we used to call as variations. So these variations mostly occurs in where? In the sexual reproduction methods only. So sexual reproduction of only, it will causes more number of variations, but these variations is good or bad for us? Is it good or bad for the offsprings, guys? That is what my question. Please respond. Is it good or bad for the offsprings?
But it is good.
Yes, it is good, because if you take, for example, in asexual reproduction method, for example, by cutting sugarcane, as I told you in the last class, sugarcane plants, they will reproduce by the process of asexual reproduction. Yes or no, guys? So if you take a sugarcane and if you cut it and if you bury it inside the soil, so now all the new sugar plants, whatever it is coming from the sugarcane, so everything they are similar. If you look from the, like commonly if you observe them all together, they are all having, you will never find even much differences also, but still very little variations in various sugarcane plants we used to find it. But they used to looks very similar. So all the sugarcane plants almost look like, but if it comes to the animals, they will reproduce by the process of sexual reproduction. So very large number of variations are produced. So due to these variations only, no two human beings are alike or similar, except whom? Except an identical twins. So these identical twins also you might be noticing a few very rare differences will be there. So except these twins, no other two human beings or any kind of animals is having a similarities. Large number of varieties will be there. So this is what you have to understand. So why this variations is taking place in the sexual reproduction, we will study now. So now if you observe, these variations only, it is necessary for the organic evolution. So if organism wants to survive, for example, if we take long back, a human bodies also, if you go millions of years before, our body is covered with a very thicky hair. You might be watched some Hollywood movies also. When they are at the beginning stage of evolution, like human transformation from long back to this, so we are having a very strong hair on the body. Is it like animals, gorilla? Have you noticed it? Please respond. Try to involve. So, but now if you notice it, still now also we are used to get a hair, but it's not that much strong, that much thicky and very dark color. Because by that time, we don't have that much, what we can say, to resist the temperatures and as well as to resist the coldness and all, to protect our body. We don't know any kind of cloth or any kind of protection. So that is why we are having what? Hair. So later slowly that hair is keep on disappearing from the generations to generations, because evolution is when we are transforming ourselves, variations is taking place from one generation to another generation. So lot of characteristics is changed. Even our face cuts, body structure, height, etc. Lot of transformations according to the environmental conditions. So if organism wants to survive for the new conditions and the new environmental changes, then that is what we used to call as evolution. So for the organic evolution, the variations is very, very necessary. So if the variations are not taking place, then what will happen, sir? That is what we will study in our today's class. So why the importance, variations are very important for organic evolution, now we will see. So now if you'll see, so from that we can say, so variations are very, very necessity for what? It is for organic evolution. So now with one example I will explain, if our variations are not taking place, then what will happen to the organism? So let us discuss today's class. So now, as I told you, because of sexual reproduction, huge number of variations will occur in from one generation to another generation. Yes or no, guys? Please respond. Maybe they are look similar, but lot of variations we used to observe. For example, in last class I have told you, so in most of the people, we can observe two kinds of ears. What is that ears? Anybody can say? In most of the
Attached earlobe and detached earlobe.
two kinds of ears. One is what? Free earlobes, and another one is what? Attached earlobe.
Attached earlobe.
So now, for example, you can see this is what the picture. So if you notice it here, this is what we used to call as, in this picture clearly you can observe a person is having, you might be see here, this is what we used to call as free earlobe. Are you able to see, guys? Please respond. This is what we used to say free earlobe, and you might be see here, it is attached earlobe. Yes. So most of the people, if you notice it, okay, so they are having a free earlobe only, and very few they are having a attached earlobe like this. So you might be also having some one of it, either free earlobe or else attached earlobe. You can verify yourself. So that is what. So this is also one of the variations. So free earlobe or attached earlobe is variations found in human population. So generation to generation, it is variations are taking place in the shape of the ears, and somebody might be see they're having a very big this ear shape. Have you noticed it, guys? They're having very big in size, that size of the eardrums. yeah, this whatever it is antenna like this structure. So everything it is very big in structure. So you might be see here he is having a free. It is like a swinging. It is not attached to the one side of the brain. But here what it is happening? It is attached completely to the side of the head. So this is what we used to call as attached earlobe, and this is we used to call as free earlobe. So this is one of the most common variations which is occurs in the human beings. That is what we people are studying. So now if you notice it, for example, if you take, let me consider our today your everybody is having parents. So let me take animals. Some animals they are having two parents. One is male parent and another one is what, guys? Female parent. Yes. So now this both will like both will reproduce, means in the sense they will meet together, then copulation. So they used to produce offsprings. Is it yes or no? Please respond. They used to produce the offsprings. So now as we know, male we used to call as paternal and female we used to call as mother, we used to call as maternal. So they used to produce offsprings. So now these offsprings, they definitely having some variations. Will you accept that or not? Please respond. So they will have some variations compared to the male and female. Yes or no? Yes?
Yes, sir.
These variations will never come immediately into the next offsprings. Do you understand it? So next offsprings is not going to occur same kind of variations which occurs in this first generation or the first offsprings which is used to come from the male and female. So why means because these variations needs to appear in the next generations. It needs to take time, and these offsprings need to continuously involve in the next and next and next several generations, involving in the production of several generations. Then only the variations will occur. For example, let me take, so one male and female, try to understand, one male and female, they used to involve in the sexual reproduction, and they used to produce the first generation. This is what the first generation offsprings. Now, so they are having some variations. Finally, this male and female body, whatever they are produced, the new generations, they are having some variations. So these variations, maybe they are having some more immunity, or else they can resist the high temperature, or they can survive in cold regions or hot regions. Like that, some variations is occurs. Now, these variations is not going to come in the next offsprings. If these variations need to come in next offsprings means, so these whatever the offsprings are produced in the first time, they should involve in sexual reproduction for production of several next generations. Do you understanding? Next offsprings, like that continuously a few offsprings used to produce, then only we can use to observe that these variations are inbuilt in the upcoming generations. Are you understanding, everyone, what I'm saying? So this is only we used to call it as accumulation of variations. Have you understand, Arvind, what I'm saying? So what do you mean by accumulation of variations means? For example, let me take, once again in detail I will explain. So if you take, let me take now, here is the male parent and here is the female parent. So now they used to involve in the sexual reproduction. They used to produce one offsprings. So now these offsprings, again, they will involve in sexual reproduction. They will produce the next offsprings. Do you understand? So like this, again, these offsprings will involve in next sexual reproduction. Again, they will produce in the next offsprings. So totally how many generations here? So this is the first generation which is produced. This is the next second generation. Like this, this is the third generations. This is third generation. So like this. So now, when the first generation is produced, definitely it is having some variations. So that variations, maybe it is a good variation or maybe bad variation. So whatever it is, need to help for organic evolution. So now these variations need to appear in coming generations. So it is not coming by immediate. It will take certain time. That is what the variations, it will take certain time to accumulate in the genes of a male and female bodies. So it will take several generations after. So the significance of these variations only shows, which has been shown by the first offsprings, will come after several generations only. So this time period which will take to find this significance of these variations, that is what we used to call as accumulation of variations. So every reproduction of organism produces these variations. So during this reproduction, these successive generations, they will get accumulated in these organisms. That is what we used to call as accumulation of variations. For example, let me take with the example I will explain so that you can understand. Suppose you can see bacteria. Presently we are facing, full world is facing with the one virus. What is that virus, guys? Yes, please respond. So if you take bacterium, let me take the bacteria. Basically, bacteria will survive where? Anybody can say, Bhumiga, bacteria will survive at what temperatures? Very low temperatures.
Cold temperature.
Yes. So it is not too much hot, it is not too much cold. That is what bacterium, any kind of bacterium if you take, that is what it will be. Because they are all single cell organisms, very like a low grade minimum organisms. They cannot survive. They are not a complex structures, very simple structure. So they cannot survive at a very high temperature. Now, for example, let me take, suppose a bacterium produces two bacteria. So by asexual method only. So it has been produces two bacteria by asexual reproduction. Now, one bacteria become how many, guys? So first bacteria become what? First bacteria become into two bacteria. Yes or no? By asexual reproduction method. So it has been produces into two new offsprings. Now, again, suppose one of these offspring is having a variation that due to which it can tolerate a little high temperature. Actually, this parent cannot tolerate the high temperature. So due to some variations takes place during this asexual reproduction. So let's consider these offspring can tolerate little high temperature. If you are not understand, please ask me. Little high temperature. So now this is what the variation occurs from parent to the offspring. Yes or no, guys? Please respond. Yes. So this daughter offspring can tolerate little high temperature. So this is what it can survive than the other one. So this one maybe not survive, and this one can have a variation which can survive little high temperature. So now this variation of little more heat will go on accumulating in the next generation, like this. Continuously, the new offsprings, once the variation occurs in this stage, so continuously the next few generations, continuously this little high temperature keep on accumulating in every generation. So the generation in certain stage, where the generations is producing by this bacterium, they will ultimately give rise to variant of bacteria which will highly can resist, even highly heat resistance. Do you understand, everybody, what I'm saying? So the generations after continuously the heat, little high temperature which can tolerate, it is keep on that variation is accumulating in this generation, next generation, like this it is keep on accumulating. So the finally at certain stage, the generations which is produced by these offsprings, they can resist even extremely high temperature, and even they can survive at very, very high temperature. So this is what we used to call as accumulation of what? Accumulation of variations. For example, corona only. So now as we know, basically if it is a any kind of virus or bacteria, only it needs to survive in a particular period. Is it yes or no, guys? Please respond. In a particular period and particular temperature, it needs to survive. But corona is what is happening? Corona is coming in cold countries. Corona is coming in hot countries. Even corona is coming mainly in summer only. Have you noticed it? Summertime only it is corona is spreading even much faster, where the temperature is very high. So that is what we used to call it as variants. So what is the variants you've been found in corona? Corona variants, anybody can say? Why nobody is speaking? I am not at all getting.
Delta, Omicron.
So we people got COVID-19, corona. First variant is what? First variant is Delta. Is it yes or no? COVID Delta variant, and now it is coming Omicron. So now all this is what? Is variations only. So corona is the basic virus which causes some kind of diseases. So when it is usually corona is a virus. So which method it will follow? Sexual or asexual method of reproduction? Sexual or asexual reproduction method?
Asexual.
Asexual reproduction method. So when it is started producing the first generation babies, for example, let me take this is the coronavirus. So now if it is started producing the first generation babies by a DNA replication, then one of the offspring can survive at a cold region. Do you understand? And another variant can survive in hot region. So this is what happens in the variation. So we can say this is what variation. But parent corona, first virus can survive where? Either in cold region or it can survive in hot region. We don't know that. But when the variations takes place in the new babies, so these variations continuously accumulate of the offsprings which is produced by this body, by this cell. Now, like the second offspring, the generations which is produced by this virus, the second offspring is continuously the variation of hot resisting is continuously accumulating. So like this keep on, it is surviving at finally certain stage the variations, because these variations, the time duration is very less. Corona can produce much faster. So that is what is happening. So finally, the variations which is produced at present, what we are facing, the COVID-19 or COVID Delta or Omicron, everything, they are able to survive in all the conditions. That is what it is increasing their ability to survive. So these variations, why it is important means for every organism, they will increases the surviving capacity according to the changes in our environment. So this is what we used to call it as accumulation of variations. For example, now let me take one body. You might be see some persons suddenly in English also some story will be there. One person went to coma 20 years before and suddenly he will come. Recently one movie also came. Jairam, he is a hero in Tamil also. He went to coma in 20 years before. After that he will come and he cannot survive in this present existing world. Have you seen anybody? Have you watched that movie? Yes, Komali. Very good. Kajal is the hero in Komali. Yes, Komali 2020 something is 2021 movie name also. So that is, if you notice it, so here what is happening? If the variations is not taking place, for example, this is the parent. If this parent is used to produce two offsprings, one offspring can, unfortunately, it can resist a little high temperature. So now these variations, this offspring, no variation is occur. So that what is happening, guys? The generations which is produced by this one means the new offsprings produced by this one cannot survive at new conditions. Is it yes or no? Please respond. So at new conditions and new temperatures, these offsprings which is produced by the less number of variations cannot survive at these new generations. So that is what the importance of variation. So the great advantage of variation is a species, whatever the species, it can increase the chances of its survival in changing environment. Do you understand? So this accumulation of, if you take in place of corona only, if you take, or else any kind of bacteria, the accumulation of heat resistance variations in some bacteria will ensure its survival even when the temperature in its environment rises too much due to some kind of any reason. It may be heat waves or maybe pollution or whatever it is. That is why now corona is having the fast variations. It is reacting and it is making a new different variations from one generation to another generation. That is why it is very difficult to control now, and it is spreading even cold countries and as well as hot regions. Everywhere it is able to survive because it is having large number of variations from one generation to another generation. So that is why it is increasing the ability of surviving of this coronavirus in the present situation. So every bacteria or virus or every organism, every species, if they did not have these variations, so they cannot withstand and they cannot survive under these new conditions. So that finally what will happen, guys? Finally they will die. That is what is going to happen. So that is why we can say the variations is important or not important for any kind of organism. Is it variations are important or not? So accumulating of variations from one generation to another generation is keep on taking place, and it is necessary for surviving of any organism or evolution of any organism for the changes according to the changes in the environment. So that is what we used to call as accumulation of variations. Have you understand? Please everybody respond. Have you understand what do you mean by accumulation of variations and why it is important?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please. Right. Call to option is accumulation of variations. Right. The significance of variations. The significance of variations. The significance of variations shown up only if it continues to be inherited. If it is continuous to be inherited by the offsprings. The significance of a variation shown up only, the significance of variations shown up only if it continues to be inherited. If it is continuous to be inherited, by the offsprings for several generations. For example, this now you are the first generation of your parents. Imagine you have some little variations. Now, these variations will appear in our next generation? Is it this appearance will appear in next generation? Please respond. It won't be
No, sir.
this next generation because it will accumulate in them. Understanding? So whatever the variation you have, it will accumulate in the next generation. So after that, what is happening? That accumulation will keep on carrying to the next generation and next generation and next generation. So after several generations, they will show that variation which you presently what the variation you got from different from your parents. Do you understand? That is what we used to call as accumulation of variations. Okay. So please call to option is Jesse is not there. Akshaya is there. Ashika and all. Please call them. Dina, Pranav. Inform them. So that is. So this is what we used to call as. So now examples you can take any kind of bacteria. So if one bacteria unfortunately it is able to survive at some temperature, then that variation is keep on accumulating in its next generation. At certain stage, the bacteria which is produced by them or else the species which is produced by them can survive even at very high temperature. If that variation is not happening, what is happening? That it cannot survive under that new conditions or circumstances, and finally it will lead to the death. It will die. So that is what importance of accumulation of variations. So please write. The great advantage of variation to a species is that the great advantage of variation to a species is that it increases the chance of its survival. Nitinath, are you understand, Nitinath? Aishwarya? It will increase the chances of its survival in a changing environment, in a changing environment, in a changing environment. So best example you can remember COVID-19 only. That is what it is called as. So this is all about what is heredity, what is variations, and what is accumulation of variations. So see, remember this chapter is having more priority for a board exam. So understand, because in this so many new things will come. Everything we have to understand very in detail. So now the next concept which we are going to study is the well famous experiments. That is what Mendel's experiment for explaining the transmission of these characters from offsprings, means from parents to the offsprings. So that is what we are going to study, Mendel's experiments for transmission of the characters from parents to the offsprings. But if you want to understand this Mendel's experiment, what he has been done and what the conclusions made by Mendel's for explaining the transmission or transfer of characters from parents to the offsprings, first of all, we should understand a few words meaning. So let us see what is that meanings, and as well as later only we'll study what is the Mendel's experiments for the explaining this transmission of characters. Now, first of all, you should understand, so the offsprings also we used to call as, in this chapter, see last chapter we used to call the babies which is produced from the parents is called as offsprings. But in this chapter, we'll use the most common word is called as progeny. What is the word for offsprings, guys? Progeny, Progeny, means in the sense of offsprings. Now also, next we should know the meanings of chromosomes. Everything we will study one by one. So already people know chromosome. Next one, you people need to know gene, and as well as you need to know dominant gene. Dominant gene, and next one is called as recessive gene, and the next one is called as genotype. Next one is phenotype, and next F1 generation, and next one is F2 generation. So if you understand these meaning of these words, then only we can understand what is Mendel's experiment for transmission of characters from parents to the offsprings. So first of all, let us understand progeny. You all people know, just now I said, what do you mean by progeny, guys? Progeny means what? It is offsprings. Understand? So if any kind of new babies is producing from the parents, that is what we used to call as progenies, or we can say offsprings. Will you be able to remember? Please respond. Yes. So in the chapter, the most common word which we'll use in place of offsprings is progeny only. So everywhere, because the Mendel is George Mendel used the same thing. That is why we'll use in this chapter, instead of offspring, we will use progeny only. So now let us come to the next one, chromosomes. So before, if you want to understand chromosomes, as we know, we are having two kinds of cells which we used to study in our lower classes. Anybody can say what is that cells? One is plant cell and another one is what? One is plant cell, another one is what it is, guys? Animal cell. Is it yes or no? So now plant cell and animal cell, lot of variations will be there, but in middle they are having something. What is that called as?
Nucleus.
What is that called
Nucleus.
as? Nucleus.
Yes,
Is called as. So they both are having nucleus. So these nucleus, we can observe by the time your class 8th you might be studying, they are having a thread-like structures. You might be notice it. Have you noticed it, guys? So every cell of an organism, they're having a center nucleus, and these center, they're having a thread-like structures. Is it yes or no? Yes. So these thread-like structures only you might be used to called as, understand?
chromosome.
A thread-like structures, that is what we used to call as chromosome, which is formed by a something called as, what is that called as?
DNA.
Understand? DNA. So this thread-like structures only we used to call as chromosomes, which is formed by a structure inside the nucleus of a cell, which is formed by DNA. So now this DNA means what? What do you mean by DNA, guys? Even 10th also I told you, DNA full form.
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Yeah, deoxyribonucleic acid. So now, which will carries what? Which will carries the genes. Understand? So yes, genetical information from whom?
Information from
From
parents to the
parent to
offspring.
the offsprings. So that is what it is. So what do you mean by chromosomes? So chromosomes are a thread-like structure. Where we used to find a thread-like structures we used to find in the
The nucleus.
nucleus of a cell formed of DNA, which carries what? Which carries the genes. That is what you have to remember. So now, if you notice it, we are having different organisms. For example, if you take humans, if you take animals, other animals, so different organisms have different number of chromosomes in their nuclei. So now if you take, so